Like our entire school went back in person, and this one kid stayed online. I was like, I want to do that. And I talked to him. We figured out there's some program online that's based in Florida that you can transfer your credits to from your high school that I was currently at in Maryland. Convinced my mom. I was like, Mom, I'm getting straight A's. I'm a good student. I want to graduate early. This is the route for me. So I was 16 years old at the time. I had all my credits. I finished my first semester of junior year.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Walk to Wealth podcast. If you're tuning in on YouTube or any of the podcast directories, make sure to do yourself one teeny tiny little favor and make sure to give us a follow, because I don't want you to miss out on any of the amazing guests I got coming on this year. Without further ado, we're going to get right into this one. Gus, for anyone who hasn't had the pleasure, the opportunity to get to know you, to get to meet you yet, brother, tell us your elevator pitch. Who are you and what do you do?
Of course, Ben. When I first met John at the Great American Speak Off not too long ago, it was about a month ago. We were down in Fort Lauderdale, and what I do is I'm the VP of marketing for the fastest growing men's only mastermind in the world, founded by Jada Han himself. He's a real estate developer, entrepreneur, and I've been so blessed and honored to be his right hand man for the last 2 years, traveling around the world, managing all the stuff on the back end, a team of 10, and really taking it to the next level, really understanding what, abundance, freedom, and wealth really is at a young age. And I'm so blessed to be here, John, and thank you for having me on, brother.
Yeah, of course, man. So for anyone listening right now, the Great American Speak Off, my series of how I got into that, how I started public speaking, I talk a little bit more about it, but quick little recap. It was a speaking competition. I went down there to Fort Lauderdale and I seen Gus. Now, Gus obviously looks young, right? He's younger than me. And I'm in there and I'm thinking I'm about to be the youngest person there. And so as soon as I seen someone, I was like, all right, I seen him, walking around the first couple of days. I'm like, all right, I got to figure out a way to connect with him. Just so happened the last day we ended up connecting. And so we had a
Yep,
quick conversation, started talking about points and miles and credit card stuff. And then,
for
what you
sure.
got going on? We started talking about a little bit about marketing, and now he's here on the podcast. So now I'm curious, man, take us back in the time machine, man. Where does your journey all start? Like, where does it all begin for you? Were you always an entrepreneur? Like, how do you grow up, man?
So it's funny you say that because, when I first walked into that room, I never had the intention of like, trying to be the youngest in the room and trying to flex like that, because that's not really my intention. But I remember just being that, like, literally, I was 14 years old, working busboy and dishwasher jobs 24/7, just hustling as a dog. Because, like, as a young guy, I always wanted to just have some money and be successful. But it really wasn't until I found a mentor that it absolutely changed everything. So when I first met you and you were like, I saw you at the event. I was like, man, this guy's young. I got to go connect with him. And I believe you're only one connection away from changing the entire trajectory of your life. But, just being that young kid who had no confidence, no communication skills, completely lost in high school, being swayed by teachers, friends, family, so many different people telling me so many different opinions and saying all this stuff to me that really made no sense. John, just put it in a simple perspective. I wanted to be someone, I wanted to be successful. I wanted to be, driving nice cars with the hot girls and traveling around the world, doing some amazing things with some amazing people. But my teachers, my friends, and their friends, like my teachers were driving Priuses and I wanted to be driving a Lamborghini. So why would I listen to a teacher when I wanted to be, driving a Prius when I wanted to be driving a Lamborghini? So it really didn't make sense to me. So when I found a mentor and really understood, okay, this guy is in a position I want to be in, he's doing the things I want to do, that's when I only listened to him and went all in on the advice that he was giving me. And that was what was able to get me in a position to be at the Great American Speak Off, shake a hand like yourself, and even get on a podcast like this and share my story.
Yeah, amazing, man. So take us back a little bit further, man. So like growing up, like were you like were you brought into like an entrepreneurial environment? Like I know for me growing up, man. So I was raised by my grandparents, and none of them were entrepreneurial. I came here. I mean, they came from DR, which is like immigrating in a way is very entrepreneurial, like taking that risk, that leap of faith, leaving everything behind to come to a different country. But they weren't entrepreneurs in the sense that they had their own business, right? Neither of my parents, none of them had a business, or any of my uncles or aunts. So like for me, I felt like I blossomed. I mean, even though it's still pretty early, but I blossomed a little later on, right? Like for me, I wasn't entrepreneurial at all in terms of the fact like I wasn't worried about just starting a business or making money. Like I had friends flipping sneakers in school. Like they'll go into these sneaker conventions, going with 3 boxes, come out with like 6, 7, 8 boxes of sneakers. And like I had friends around me who were doing that. Even my sister, like she was selling slime in school. Like she had like employees in middle school making slime for her and selling it. Like I didn't have any of that stuff growing up. It wasn't until later on I kind of got into entrepreneurships. Like, was it similar for you? Like, how do you kind of get into?
So, bro, I grew up at a skate park. You know, my dad, he was an alcoholic when I was growing up. I do now have a decent relationship with him, but you know, growing up, my mom and my dad, they were constantly in fights. I grew up in a really kind of disoriented household, and I think that is what allowed me to get the grit and the determination and the motivation to, you know, put that pressure on me. I feel like a lot of times nowadays people, they don't have that external motivation. I had the external motivation of my household being a disruption, but it also had that internal motivation for me to actually strive for my purpose and strive for something greater than myself. So growing up, my dad was an alcoholic. My mom was a single mom. She had the courage to eventually leave the household and venture out on her own, where she ended up, I guess you could say, become an entrepreneur, start her own little small business. She was cleaning houses for these huge, houses like mansions and people that were very successful. So she would drop me and my brother off at the skate park in Ocean City,
Mhm.
Maryland. And we would stay there from like 9 a.m., obviously not during school, but in the summertime, she would drop me off at 9 a.m. and we would leave at like 9 p.m. So that grit, like I could have become a pro skater just because of the consistency aspect of skating for literally like since I was 3 years old up until I was like 16. I stopped skating maybe two years ago, but
Yeah.
that grit and that consistency effort, like I always put it in a simple perspective like this, again, going down to the basics, like for you to land a skate trick, you need to fail 100 times before you can even land it one time. So if you just take that exact same principle to anything else in life, which is what I did in the business world and in the connecting world and the skill set world, I think growing up in a world where skating was my life and hanging around, people that were better than me at skating, and even when you put it in that simple perspective, like the people that I was hanging around with were better than me at skateboarding, and I wasn't the best skater in the room, right? But they were way better than me. So I was learning from them just being in their vicinity. So when you take that down to like a business perspective and you're trying to become very successful and you're not the smartest person in the room, but you're hanging around people that are very successful and smart and have great businesses, I think that's where you can take those two simple examples and put them down to like the foundations of just like hanging around people that are better than you, even if it comes down to just skateboarding, was I think what really set the trajectory for me. And then after that, being in high school, I remember, just being a little bit, you know, unconfident in my next moves, not really know if I wanted to go to college. I'm sure, your family and your friends are like, oh, go to college. It's the right step. You have to go to college to be successful, and I was just fed all this BS, and I had to venture out online and find people like 10x and Grant Cardone, who opened my eyes up to 10x, and eventually getting connected with the right people to transform everything.
Yeah, no, 100%. I resonate with that a lot because I think we all have phases of growing up. Now, one of my phases was skateboarding, right? I think it was like a 2, 3 month period where like I wanted to skateboard for whatever reason. I got a skateboard, and I think I did a kickflip once in my life and never landed it ever again. I landed one kickflip one time, and that's it. I could do an ollie, but only if I was staying still. I couldn't do any other skate tricks. It was too difficult. So I ended up letting that go. Actually, what happened was my complex was super weird, man. Growing up, like where I live now, they were just always super annoying. People complained. So I actually ended up taking my skateboard, never got it back, and that was like how I wasn't even home. I had a friend using the skateboard, and they took it away from him. They confiscated it, and that was the end of my skateboarding career. So I resonate with that a lot because you have to try a lot of things and fail. And you mentioned too when you were telling your story at first, you said you were bussing, working like a dog, and I worked at a restaurant as well, bussing. And so it's like before I used to go to clock in to work, I have a saying my grandpa's like trabajando como los burros, right? And in Spanish for working like a donkey. And like it's super laborious work, man. Like for me, my restaurant had 2 floors. So like we had to go up and down the stairs bussing with it sometimes. And as you probably already know, like no matter how fancy a restaurant is, I don't care, man. Behind the scenes, they are a complete mess. And like if someone calls out and doesn't get coverage, like that used to be the worst, man. Cause now I have to be like busing and like kind of food running and doing all this extra stuff that I'm normally not supposed to be doing. And it definitely does teach you a lot of grit. For me personally, it also helped me get more comfortable talking to different people because I was very extroverted, but it's like dealing with all these different personalities. Some people come in and they just think it's okay to just trauma dump and be extremely rude and just take out whatever problems they had at work or whatever on all the servers and the staff in the restaurant. And then you have some people that are super cool, super nice people, and like very respectful. And then you have everyone in between, right? And so it's like I learned a lot from being in the restaurant. I built a lot of character that I think helped me to what I got going on. Like right now, it's like for you, I'm curious, like what was your experience like working in the restaurant?
Man, it was crazy, man. I remember being literally 14 years old. I think I was 13. I think my first job was 13 years old. But when I was 14, I was actually legal to get a job. So we lived in this resort town called Ocean City, Maryland. And anybody listening to this right now, I'm sure, if you're on the East Coast, you probably know what it is. And, there's something called the White Marlin Open. It's, world known or across the entire East Coast. And there's a specific little restaurant. It's called the Real Inn. And it was like a 10-minute walk from my house. Like, not, it was like 5-minute walk from my house because it was like right next to me, right on the city. And my first job was a dishwasher. And although I absolutely hated it, I did it regardless because I knew that if I continued to do things that I absolutely hate and got good at them, I could transition that to anything else in life. And sometimes you just need to do the hard shit that you just don't want to do sometimes. And that's the reality people don't understand is that even though I was 14, even though I didn't want to be a dishwasher, even though I wanted to be a food runner or a busboy, but they didn't have that position for me yet. I wasn't making tips. I was making minimum wage for an entire summer washing dishes. And they told me after that summer, even as a 14-year-old, I was the best dishwasher they've ever had. So no matter what job you're doing, I believe that you should become the best at it no matter what, because the way you do one thing is the way you do everything else. So after getting that one job, I ended up moving, a few miles away, and I ended up working, for the next, I don't know, like 2 to 3 years, same stuff, busboy, dishwasher, and then finally, leveling up to an expo. And the pressure of an expo, people do not understand the pressure of being an expo. I will tell you
Yeah.
right now that is probably one of the most high stress environments you can ever be in. If you think about it like this, the expo is somebody right in the middle of the chef and the front of the house. So what you need to do is you're the one who's taking the orders, and you're telling to the team making the food, make this food, make that food, and then once they give it to you, then you're the one who's now delegating it out to everybody else. So that was one of the most high stress environments I've ever been in. And just really being put in that high pressure was able to really see what I was built and made of. Like really just understanding that like when you can be put in a high stress environment like that, anything else, like if you can just become really stress tolerant, that is probably one of the most valuable skill sets you can possibly have when trying to become successful. And I'm sure you can agree with that, especially being a busboy and a dishwasher. Like those skill sets are just so valuable to have, because being high stress and being able to look at a lot of different things. And I think that's what gave me the perspective of how I can now translate that. And I think the theme of what I'm talking about there is the translating those foundational skill sets from skateboarding to working in the restaurant games, and now being in the position I am today, connecting with the best and using those exact same foundations that allow me to connect with the best in the world, travel around at such a young age, and doing it, the way I am.
Yeah, no, I agree with that 100%, man. I never got the official position of expo, but being in the kitchen, food running, man, like you do everything. And so, like, I was used to expo as well sometimes, and it's like for anyone who hasn't been in a restaurant, this is like I always say, especially if you're young, like you have to work. I feel like it's mandatory. It should be mandatory to work in a restaurant or like in retail of some sort because like it just teaches you one a lot about people. But then two, as I said, restaurants behind the scene are so such a mess, man. But it's like and the customers will never be able to tell because we make it happen. We make it work. And like when it comes to expoing, it's like a chess type of dance that you're doing. It's like you can't tell all the chef what all the food is because if you tell them and there's a stack of like 10 orders that all just came in at the same time because a large, family just got sat. And it's like, man, but then you have a whole bunch of appetizers that people, man, it's a giant game. And like, if you could manage that, you could manage a whole lot. So I agree with you 100%. And so let me ask you now, man. So like, for you, what led up to that turning point? Like, what was that kind of like point that things started to shift for you? And like, take a step back and then tell us what led up to that point to make you start heading down on your journey. You said you meant a mentor, but like, what led up to that point?
Man, I would say working those long hours and my feet aching and my hands
Mm.
greasy and my fingernails are just black. I was like, all right, man, I gotta figure some shit else out. Like, I cannot be doing this for the rest of my life. And that's when I really start to understand that business was going to be that game that I wanted to throw myself into. And I needed to work for myself. I needed to at least have some freedom. Like, if anyone asked me, like, Gus, like, what do you want the most in life? I'm going to simply say freedom. Freedom is one of the biggest things that I've always wanted in this entire life. And that's why I think it gravitated towards me to like figure out what that business world looked like, all these different things. And, once I found Grant Cardone online, he really opened my idea and my mindset open to the 10X mindset. And finding someone like Grant who introduced me to this 10X mindset, I think really allowed me to dive into that space. And when I first found Grant Cardone online, I'm sure you can be say the exact same thing, that wow, like he really like put it into perspective for me that this was something I wanted to learn about. And introducing myself into that 10X mindset like literally transformed the entire trajectory of my life, because once I started understanding more about 10X, understanding about the freedom lifestyle I wanted to, gravitate towards, that bottle of just pressure of like, I don't want to be working a 9 to 5 anymore, just kept building and building and building up. And once that pressure just exploded, I was like, all right, I got to quit my job. I got to figure something else out. And that's when I found Grant Cardone's real estate summit. I started, learning about real estate and how that could be the next step for me. I ended up investing, $1,000 to go to one of his real estate summits back in December of 2021 during like the peak of COVID. And have you ever been to one of his real estate summits before?
I have not actually. I haven't.
Yeah, so his real estate summits, what actually events have you been to Grant other than like the Great American Speak Off?
So I've been to the 10X Stages workshop, which was like literally 2 days before. And then I attended GroveCon virtually last year in 2023 because I was one of the virtual judges for the finale of the Great American Speak Off. So aside from that, I would see his clips online, but for me, so my first like big person that I like, because I got we have it's crazy, we have very similar stories, right? Because for me, when I decided when I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, the first thing I ended up doing, or at least investing in, was a $500 course on real estate wholesaling. So for you, you invested $1,000 into the Grant Cardone Investor Summit. I invested $500 in a real estate wholesaling course, and that's what ended up because I was also interested in real estate. So it's crazy how our stories kind of like match up a little bit, a little different, but like we both invested some money into like a real estate training of some sort. But yeah,
That's crazy. I was gonna say like the similarities, like I'll get to like the entire trajectory point for my life, but I think we're still in that building stage for someone to really understand like why that took place. And like even when I started just researching Grant, there were so many other pieces that started falling into place. Like, all right, I got to learn about how to start investing. Okay, I need to start learning how I can get my mindset right, and then the communication, and then how do I talk to people? How do I ask the right questions? How do I build a network? So there are so many different skill sets that I needed to learn, and I feel like that's one thing that a lot of like young people don't understand fully is like you can't just go like from working a 9 to 5 to making $100,000 like in the next few months, because you need to acquire skill sets. You need to acquire things that will be valuable in the marketplace. And I think that was the trajectory for me when I started really understanding, Rich Dad Poor Dad. And was that one of the first ever books you actually read, was Rich Dad Poor Dad? Because
that
that
was
was the
a,
one
that
for me.
was the first book that I read that made me change everything. That was the first one.
Was there any other books that you read that changed everything for you?
The second one that was like super impactful was actually a personal finance book. It was it's called "I Will Teach You to Be Rich" by Ramit Sethi, and that's how I got interested in points and miles. That's when I became a credit card nerd. I was like, "Oh shoot, you can use credit cards to get points? Hold on, let me figure out this stuff." I was like, "Oh, he has a Chase. I think he had the Chase Sapphire Preferred card." And so that's when I was like, all right, I started looking up. It's like 100,000 points. What can you do with these points? You could book hotels. You could book airplane travel. You get all these benefits. I'm like, oh shoot, I gotta figure out more. I would say the third book that like really shifted my mindset, and this is all within like a 3 month span. The third book that really shifted my mindset was Think and Grow Rich. That's when I started realizing, like, oh, like mentally, there's a different way of viewing the world that wasn't being taught in school. Like, Rich Dad Poor Dad planted a seed. Then I Will Teach You to Be Rich got me like really interested in like personal finance and stuff like that. And then like, but Think and Grow Rich helped me realize like, nah, there's levels to this like game of life, and the people who are doing it play this whole game differently. It was so profound. Like, I never heard any material like Think and Grow Rich prior to Think and Grow Rich. Like, for at least in terms of like in comparison to school and stuff like that, bro. Like, I never read in that was like super eye opening for me, bro.
Think and Grow Rich was that one for you. I like to read books, but I think Rich Dad Poor Dad was the one that really piqued my interest. I remember sitting in the car one day with my mom, and I had my feet on the dashboard, and she's like, "What are you reading?" My brother's in the back seat, like, "Why are you reading?" Like questioning me, and I'm like, "Man, I'm trying to escape the matrix, man. I'm trying to do my thing out here." And that, like, I read that book continually straight for a month. It probably took me like a month and a half to finish it. I wasn't fully committed yet, and that book just really opened my mindset to like passive income, investing in personal development, and really just understanding money as a whole. And that really introduced me to all these sorts of things, and mentorship that led into that. And I'm curious, from your side, before we dive too deep, is did you ever have any mentors in your life?
So for me, I actually am an odd case because I can't say that I did. Right. I mean, I had people that I looked up to and learned from, but there's no one. When I think of mentor, I think, well, I could say, I could answer the question one of two ways. I could either say A, I had too many mentors to count, or B, didn't really have any mentor. I didn't have any. Because I would say I'm more of like, for me, I didn't have that. So my parents, my grandmom, she suffered from mental health issues. My dad, he was absent growing up. He was also an alcoholic growing up as well. So as I said, very similar stories. Weird. My grandparents raised me, and so like for me, I also grew up in the projects. It's like I was became aware about a lot of different things very early on. Um, and for me, I just kind of became being very open minded. I kind of just took the parts of people that I liked and tried to apply it to my life, and the parts that I didn't like, I left out. Right. And I just kind of became this giant accumulation of all these different perspectives and viewpoints, and this giant melting pot of all these different perspectives. And that's kind of how I was, I guess, assembled or created. At least my outlook on life was assembled and created. But it wasn't like one specific person that stuck out at any given point in time, at least prior to getting into entrepreneurship. There wasn't one specific person. It was just a bunch of people over a very long period of time that, gave me a tip here, a tip there, perspective there, and
Yep.
yada yada, and that kind of came together to form me.
I think what people say is, the collaboration of your childhood, your environment, the things that you've
Mm,
been introduced to is what creates you. Like, the reason I am Gus today is because of collaboration of everything I've been immersed into, the people I'm around, the information I've learned, the subconscious videos that have played in the background, the TV shows I watched as a kid. So everything that has built me to me today has been because of that. And I think that's why it's really important to, especially for the younger generation nowadays. Like, I remember my mom telling me, "Gus, show me your friends and I'll show you your future." And I was like, "Mom, you're joking, right? I don't believe you. Yeah, man. Yeah, I don't believe you, right?" But years down the line, I started to think to myself, like, the information and the advice and the people that I surround myself with truly does make an impact on my life. I heard this example from Andrew Tate, and he was saying that if you have 5 friends that all they talk about is ice cream, They only talk about ice cream. They talk about what flavor sells the best, which one is easiest to make, what ingredients you need to make it. All of these sorts of things about ice cream only. And you hung around them for year, 2 years, even a few months on end. Do you think you would at least know a little bit about ice cream? I'm asking you, do you think that?
No, 100%.
Yeah, it's the same way with business, and I'm sure you can agree. It's the same way with anything in life. You want to learn tennis, hang around people who are professional tennis players. If you want to become the ultimate communicator, the ultimate networker, go hang with people that are connecting with billionaires on a daily basis. And that was really what aligned my viewpoint on like what people do I need to cut out of my life? What people do I need to keep? Who's actually benefiting me? Why are they even in my life? Did they earn the right to be there? Would you agree, John, that there's probably some people in your life right now that you have no idea why they're in there in the first place? Do you think that they've earned a spot in your life? Like, have you gotten to a position where you've actually analyzed everybody in your circle and you've looked at it and looked at the meaning behind the relationship and why you're connected and said, did they actually earn that right to be there, or are they just there? Are they just a buffer? Are they just you know, a gap?
Yeah, so I'll answer your question like this. For me, I would answer like this. And this is me personally, so I'm not saying that your view is wrong, but for me personally, I don't like that word earn, like earn a spot to be there. I mean, for me, as I got into entrepreneurship, I do agree that yes, the relationship fizzled out, but it wasn't my intentional of like analyzing my friendships and seeing who was there. But as you one that also was a pandemic as well. But during the pandemic, I was locked in. I was working like 70 hours a week on top of studying for my real estate exam. I just finished dropping out of college and I was getting ready to get my real estate license and get into the entrepreneur business world. And so like I didn't have time to, I lied. I did have time, but if I wasn't at my first job, I was at the other job. And if I wasn't at either of those jobs, I was, studying for my real estate exam. And so the amount of people in relationship that I can, kept up with shrank significantly. And so that I wouldn't even say it pushed people away. It just kind of separated us because as we start getting further and further down our own paths, I feel like it was separated, but it wasn't because I intentionally was like, okay, I don't want this person in my life. I feel that there's some people that I can speak up to. And one of the things I do is a good indicator for like anyone listening, right? Is I feel if you spend more time talking about memories than you talk about plans, that may be a person that doesn't have a space in your future. And that is okay. And yet know that if you want to get to where you want to get to, the amount of time you could then devote to that friendship becomes a little less, and that's okay because there's such thing as low maintenance friends, right? Some friends you only need to water them once a year, and y'all catch it up, y'all boys, boom, 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 and that's it. There's other friends that you see on a more daily basis, and for those people that I do to communicate with on a daily basis, I'm intentional. I don't want to talk to people on a regular basis that aren't headed in some type of way forward and have a good head on their shoulders. And that doesn't mean they have to start a business. That doesn't mean they have to be, doing what I'm doing and on the similar journey. You just have to be striving to be great and excellent. And that, as you said, carries on to many other things outside. Like being a dishwasher doesn't mean you can start a great business, but the things that you learned from that, the lesson you learned, can be applied elsewhere. And so for me, the people in my, because it's like different circles, right? And the closer you get to the center of it, like you gotta be busy. Yeah, you gotta be standing on some type of like good mindset and have a good focus for yourself. All right. And so for those people, I'm very intentional. But for everyone else, I feel like the relationships kind of fall where they need to be. Right. The
Yeah,
people who are on the same track with, right? They're, I talk to them a lot more frequently. Like for me, it's two of my honestly, the only dude I really chop it up with now, only two is like my boy Darren, my boy Rico. My boy Darren, he also dropped out to get into real estate. I actually convinced him to drop out, to get into real estate. And then my boy Rico, um, me and him been cool for since like middle school. Everyone else I talk to feels it apart, right? And not because there's bad blood, or not because I was like, man, they're not doing any business work. I don't got to talk to them. It mainly just kind of happened on its own. I mean, at least that's how it happened for me. I'm not sure how it happened for you, but like for me, it kind of happened on its own. It wasn't any intentional thought that really went behind it. So I have a super long
yeah.
winded answer.
No, I understand. I agree with where you're coming from. I think that there's some people in your vicinity that you don't physically need to act on. They'll kind of just fall into place where they need to be. But if you're on a different trajectory, like like you can know, like if you're an eagle, you're gonna soar with other eagles regardless. You can know pigeons, and you can understand that there's pigeons, but you're not necessarily gonna be flying. You're not gonna be soaring with those pigeons because they can't even reach your level. So I think that's the same mindset that came, with the people in my life. Is I had people smoking weed, doing drugs, drinking alcohol all the time, and I just could not be surrounded by that. And I was like, all right, I cannot be in that vicinity with these kind of people. I need to do something different, and I need to separate myself from the pack in order for me to get to where I want to be. And did
Yeah.
you ever go to high school?
Yeah.
Like you completely graduated?
Yeah.
So it's interesting because during freshman years when COVID happened for me, I'm
Yeah.
18 years old. I was born in '05, so I'm a pretty young guy. So during freshman year, like second semester of freshman year, COVID happened. I was playing lacrosse. I was hanging out. I was the cool kid, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
COVID happened, and I just dissembled from everybody. I completely did my own thing, and those 2 years during like sophomore and junior year was completely remote. I had a friend at the time who was doing online school even after we went back in person. So we went, like, our entire school went back in person, and this
Yeah.
one kid stayed online. I was like, interesting. Like, I want to do that. And I talked to him. We figured out there's some program online that's based in Florida that you can transfer your credits to from your high school that I was currently at in Maryland. And I transferred. I actually told my mom, I convinced my mom. I was like, Mom, I'm getting straight A's. I'm a good student. I want to graduate early. This is the route for me. So I was 16 years old at the time. I had all my credits like banked up. So I finished my junior year, my first semester of junior year. After that first semester of junior year, I transferred my credits to this online program, and in 3 months of doing that online program, I got my legit diploma handed to me in person at 16 years old. And that's why I think I had so much bandwidth to then focus on what I wanted to do, focus on where I wanted to be, that which led me into mentorship, which led me to everything I'm doing now. But I just wanted to add
Yeah.
that piece in there, is that there's any young guys listening to this and you're like I know I'm not going to go to college. I know school wasn't really for me. Even if you have bad grades, I would highly consider the route of online school. And I want to hear your take on that. If you don't think that school is going to be for you, but you just want to get out and as fast as you possibly can, I really do. I would highly recommend this is a good option for anybody who's considering that, because it was a really good option for me. I have a lot of other things that, if you're curious about, I'd love to share. But that was a one really good strategy for me that allowed me to free up bandwidth and
Yeah.
really focus on what I wanted to do.
Like for me, so I'm with you. I think we have similar schools of thought here, where school is the biggest scam in history of scams. It's like the world's greatest scam ever, and so it's like, man, for me, the only reason well, I was also a pretty smart kid as well. I had great grades. I didn't have straight A's, but I had good grades. And I got into 13 colleges, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. As I said, I wasn't entrepreneurial prior to the pandemic, in the sense like where I was interested in business or anything like that. But I was like, all right, the only path that I know is college. So at the very least, I'm going to try to get into college and not have my grandparents have to pay for it because they didn't even have the money to pay for it. So that was the only thing I was focused on. And so like for now with all these other things, I think, for example, like my sister, we're trying to figure out what her plans is, and maybe like because college doesn't seem the route, like doesn't seem like it's going to be the route. But she is also very naturally entrepreneurial. Like she is like a typical born entrepreneur. Like she has that in her genes, and so it's like it's also not surprising that the traditional path it doesn't seem to be working out the best for her. And so for anyone, I said I didn't even know that was a thing. I mean, I knew there were online school, but I didn't know that you could accelerate the speed at which you graduate. I think the sooner you get into the real world, the sooner your pressure goes on. So I was like, I think it's sounds like a great opportunity. I just want anyone listening to know it's like once you get out there, like you're out there. People don't look at you the same. Like when you're in school, I feel like people cut you a lot of a lot of slack. At least in this country, for whatever reason. When you're in school, you're in college, you have all the grace and freedom in the world to figure it out and go out your own pace. But then once you get into the real world, it's like you got to know what you're doing, and you like you just thrown into there, thrown straight to the wolves.
Yeah, I agree, and it was very interesting because I got my diploma, and I remember it came in the mail, and I was like, man, I'm 16 years old. My friends have another year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
I got my diploma in the summertime, and they were gonna be like seniors, and I was like,
Mm-hmm.
man, this is a blessing. I am so blessed. I am so grateful and happy I took this route. And that like that alone, like really like once I got my diploma handed to me,
Yeah.
my mom was like, all right, you gotta do something with your life now. And I was like, don't worry. Don't worry, mama. You boys got this.
Yeah. I'm curious. I want to ask you a question, man, because a lot of people, especially Grant Cardone, like, and so like for me, the first like at least in the business space guy that I really really looked up to was Russell Brunson, who so like for me that was like the first guy like I really like look up to and admired, because man he's when it comes to like selling that dude is he is stamped as like probably one of the greatest sell from stage speak like public speakers ever in history, bro. But yeah, so like that was the first person. But like even with Russell, like and Grant, um, there's a lot of people. It's you love them or you hate them. And so I'm curious for you, like, what even made you receptive to that information? Because you probably know there's a lot of people you try to tell about this stuff, you try to explain to them, and it's just like for whatever reason they either A don't want to hear any of it, or B it's like there's like yeah yeah Gus or like yeah yeah John, but like never actually do anything with it. So like what do you think made you or yeah made you receptive of that information, and then implement it? Because I said a lot of people, it's just like it falls on deaf ears, but for you, clearly, it changed your, everything.
Yeah. So I will say like I remember just being 16 years old. Like I'll give you this exact scenario. I was 16 years old. I was like, all right, I graduated. Boom, cool, right? But before I graduated, I was this actually happened way before I graduated. I was typing up on Google and YouTube like the regular person, how do I make money? How do I invest my money? It's just like using YouTube as a university versus asking
Mm-hmm.
teachers to learn about business who's never even started a business in the first place, which is why I think the college road is a scam because people go get MBAs from people that they're learning from who have never even started a business beforehand. So it's a whole fucked up situation. But essentially, I went to YouTube, I started learning about this, and like the I think I was receptive. Like I'll put it as simple as this: if you are not receptive to learning information from somebody who is in a position higher, better, more successful than you may be delusional. Like you just may be delusional. So when I found Grant, I was like, all right, this guy has a, I guess, somewhat similar story of growing up with a bad childhood, and he was still able to be successful when he started at 26. So if I start when I'm 16, where would I be? So I started really understanding his credibility. I think understanding this guy has 10,000 apartment units. He has a private jet. Like he has the wife of his dreams and two kids. Like that was the lifestyle that I kind of wanted. So I was like, all right, like I might as well try it. What's the worst that could happen? So at the time, I was a young hustler, just like yourself, busboy, dishwasher. Had about $10,000 saved up, and I actually took that chance. I was like, all right, mom, I'm gonna fly you. I'm gonna fly me. We're gonna go to Miami. At 16 years old, I'm gonna buy a ticket to go to Miami to fly in during COVID in 2021 of December to go to this real estate summit. And at the time, think about it like this, brother. I no confidence, no communication skills. Like the way that I walked up to you at the Great American Speak Off, that would have never ever been replicated when I was 16 years old. Like you should have seen the way I could speak, and yeah, it was a whole different scenario. But I walked into that event. I probably met like five people. It's kind of sad to say that because I was just so unconfident. I literally just did not know what to say, did not know what to ask. And I remember sitting in the front row of the executive, and I'm sitting there with my notepad, and I got these two like I forget his name. He's like a big social media real estate guy. He's doing like house flips and multifamily. I think his name's Cody.
Cody
Cody and
Gibson. Cody
maybe
Gibson. I think it's maybe Cody Gibson. Maybe. I'm pretty sure.
maybe Cody gets him. He has like a partner. I forget his name. Cody and someone, but they were sitting right next to me. I was 16 years old. I was asking them questions about underwriting and really just immersing myself. I had my notepad. I was sitting back, and I was just the dumbest person in the room. I was just soaking up everything I could. Because at the end of the day, like, you can take in information, but you are the ultimate filter. You can load information, but you are at the end of the day the ultimate filter of what actually is actionized for you to see results. So
Yeah.
just taking everything I possibly could in, and being at that event, just immersing myself in a community like that.
Yeah, no, that's interesting, man. Like, taking that chance in the middle of that pandemic, I feel like the pandemic like made a lot of people and really showed like yo, if you're trying to hustle and get after it, there's a lot of people who took that time and just put their head down and figure something out. And there's a lot of people who just did nothing with that time and just hung out and let time be and let time pass. And the pandemic finished and they just continued going with whatever they were doing prior to the pandemic. But it's like, man, it definitely opened up a lot of opportunity for those people that were hungry, that were driven, and wanted to get after it. I want to ask you like a question. I want to hear what your thoughts are on this. Like, what's your thought on networking and how it should be done, at least, or how you go about networking?
It's a good question. I really believe that it doesn't matter how you connect. I just think that when you are connecting, you need to have a pure intention. There's a lot of people when I go to events, all they're trying to do is sell you something. And it may not even be the sales team. They may even be in that room and they're just like, hey man, like I got this $10,000 product, like let's do something with it. But for me, I go in with the pure intention of just simply connecting with you. I just want to shake your hand and get to know you, man. That is it. And I think just having the confidence to even walk up. I saw John. He was sitting down in his chair, and I'm walking over. I'm trying to just scanning the room. Like, all right, who can I go connect with? I see John. I see his curly hair, man. You got a sick hairpiece, by the way, man. So it really stood out. I was like, all
It's
right,
a marketing asset, bro. I gotta get it
yes
copyrighted.
sir, yes sir. So I saw John. I'm like, all right, that guy looks pretty young. Let me go connect with him. I'm like, hey man, I've been seeing you around the event. This is at the Great American Speak Off. I've been seeing you around the event. I want to just introduce myself and connect with another young hustler. And regardless of where that conversation goes, regardless, now we're on a podcast. Like now we're adding value to your audience, and now we're doing some big things together. But that all stemmed from the pure intention of just simply just asking for your handshake. Wherever that conversation leads to now is up to you and what your plan is after that. But just simply just going in for that handshake and just connecting and seeing who you are, seeing how we can bring our networks together and make something big out of this, I think is how it should be done.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. For me, there's a Drake quote I love. It's, "I wish you would learn to love people and use things and not the other way around." And a lot of people go into these networking events just passing out business cards. Like, I stopped I don't carry business cards anymore. Like, there's no reason for me to have a business card. I feel like, personally, if you want to connect with me, here's my number. Reach out. Like, let's connect. If not, I don't care. Because for me, it's like there's only but so many friendships and relationships that you can actually keep up with and maintain. And so for me, like, I personally, especially when I go to an event that I don't know or like I'm not familiar with, like I was traveling solo for that event. That was my first Grant Cardone event, so I didn't know anyone going into it. I'm very, very, very observant, and I'm very cautious as to who I let around me, primarily because I don't know, how other people's energy are and how that's gonna affect me, right? And so it's like I'm very wary as to who I go around, and people that I feel gravitated towards, I feel like it happens for a reason. There's like a couple people. You were one of them, of course. Another guy named Ellery. There's probably maybe like six people. Um, maybe, maybe there's like three or four that I'm actually already have a collab planned, and then there's probably like another three or four that I don't have any collabs planned, but I had a great conversation with and plan on staying in touch with. And that for me, like, usually I go to an event, I meet two, three solid people, and I'm good. Right. One, because I
Yep.
know the quality of the relationship is going to help push you so much further. And like, I also am at a place where it's like, like I don't want to do like one of the questions I was thinking about last year is like who do you want to do life with? And I just don't want to do it with just anybody. Like I want to be aligned. I want to know I'm on a similar track, a similar path, similar value, similar mission, right? Uh, just like, and if that's not the case, it's like so be it. There's tons of other people. I'm not hard pressed. It's like, but like the people that I'm actually doing life with, I want to be very intentional. So when I go to these network events, it's like I'm always open to connecting, but I'm never in a rush to connect because one, as I said, I don't know how I'm going to interact with everybody. And some people just might rub me the wrong way. And for me, I just like got like put it in his hands and see where I get, where I'm getting, I feel like guided to. And those connections always end up being so much better than when I try to go force a conversation or go like intention. And that's what worked for me personally. And it's like I do like network and happy hour events here and I get like 60, 70 people to show up and it's like none of these people I ever, handed a business card out to. It's all people that from the all the events that I've gone to, you meet two people there and three people there. And after a while that starts to build up and add up and you start to have this unit of people instead of just a mass giant group of people who may not even remember your face. Right. You start to build up like an actual unit of people that actually, know who you are, support what you got going on and the mission that you got going on and want to help.
I couldn't agree more with that, man. And I feel like when I first met my mentor Jay, I was 16 years old at that event, that real estate summit, and I'm walking around the last day of the event, and he goes, my mom's at the bar and she's getting her, regular red wine glass as she usually does, and Jay is sitting across from her, and he's getting his, regular 1942 tequila shot he usually gets, and my mom or Jay looks over and he goes, wine, nice choice, and my mom's like, oh, so what are you doing here at the event? And they get in this little small talk conversation, and then Jay's like, yeah, I'm looking to find a mentee, and my mom's like, oh my god, like my son's looking for someone like you, because going into that event, I always knew that finding a mentor was going to be the entire trajectory of my life. So I came in with that intention, the pure intention of finding a mentor at that event. And it just so happens that Jay was also looking for a mentee. So, we ended up getting in a conversation for about 30 minutes or so. And, you know, that that one conversation changed the entire trajectory of my life. By the end of it, he was like, Gus, I see something in you that I've never seen in anybody else, and I want to work with you. So I ended up taking $10,000 of my own money at 16 years old, transferring it to somebody that I barely knew. Although I did do my research, I did my credibility checks, I did, where do you come from? And, my first goal was, starting a little business. So
Yeah.
I started this little detailing company. In 3 months, we scaled it to $1,500 a day at 16 years old. So I come to your house, John, detail your nice Mercedes, your nice Lamborghini, whatever, and we had a really nice offer in place. And man, I was 16 years old, managing like three employees, just doing deals all day long. And I think after that trajectory, like meeting Jay, he was just like, I need you to bring you a part of my team, and now we're here, man. So I'm just very blessed to be here today and add value to everyone on this thing here.
Amazing, bro. And that's a perfect segue, man. Where can we connect with you at, man? Where can we find you at? What you have cooking up right now so that we can get more of what you and Jay are working on and enter your world, man.
I appreciate that, man. So you guys can just follow me on Instagram at gus.nagle. And if you guys are looking to, be surrounded by a like-minded network of people, we have our men's exclusively Lions Den Mastermind. You can go to lionsdencommunity.com, and we're taking this to a whole nother level. It's actually the fastest growing mentally mastermind in the world right now. So we're taking this to a whole different trajectory. And we believe you're only one connection away from changing the entire trajectory of your life. And that's how I got on a podcast with you, John. So I'm very blessed to be here today, brother. And I'm looking
Yeah.
forward to, staying connected with you and your audience.
And now it's time for our super lightning round, man. Super fast, man. Because I know we're kind of short on time. Question number one is: what is the most impactful lesson you learned in life?
People are everything.
What is the most admirable trait a person can have?
Magnetic confidence.
If you had to change someone's life but only had one book, which would you recommend?
10x rule.
What is the legacy that you're looking to leave behind?
There's always a different path. Everyone has their own mountain to climb, and you don't need to follow someone else's path. Do it your own way and create your own path.
And for anyone that wants to embark on their walk to wealth today, what is the first step you recommend they take?
Find a mentor. That is the first thing I would tell anybody is find a mentor. It'll change everything. It'll expedite your learning curve and learn lessons from someone who has already gone through the trials and tribulations that you don't want to do. So the best thing I could recommend is get a mentor.
100%, man. Well, that's all for the Walk to Wealth podcast. Gus, thanks as always for hopping on. Looking forward to staying in touch. And for those of you guys listening, I'll see you guys in the next episode.